testing, my gosh, right? We're going to need to do more and more of that as we have more and more devices and more complexities. Oh my gosh, cool. Do I need to use the microphone? Oh, you're going to try. Thank you. So, do I need to use the microphone? Yeah, well, I might as well, I guess. Can you hear me now? Is that good? Okay, I'll do this. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, my name's Robin Poston. I am the director of the System Testing Excellence Program. Thank you. Hey, it works. Hey, I just took 3.
This is mine.
Okay, I'll remember. I'll give it back to you. Thank you. I am the director of the System Testing Excellence Program at the University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. How many people here have heard of Elvis Presley? Oh, you know, about a third of the room, but that's not bad. Don't step on my blue suede shoes, right? He's like a singer, very famous guy. He's passed away, but he's immortalized in his music that plays every day in Memphis, Tennessee. So if you haven't been to Memphis, come visit us, and we'll share with you our new software testing research that's going on. So at the FedEx Institute of Technology. So this research that I'm going to share with you actually comes out of a project that a student in our program came up with. She was very curious. We teach software testing in the courses at the university, and she was very curious. She said, man, there's some strange things going on in the world. Yeah. In cybersecurity, why aren't we testing more for cybersecurity problems? So we talked to our industry partners like FedEx, Federal Express, International Paper, other companies in Memphis. 92 companies of the Fortune 100 in the United States have a major facility in Memphis, Tennessee, because we are a distribution hub. We ship out on FedEx planes, the 2 big train rail systems in the United States terminal, they end in Memphis. Everything comes, it's right in the middle of the country and gets shipped out from there. So therefore, we have lots of companies, lots of problems to help them solve. And this student said, wow, we aren't doing enough with cybersecurity testing. How many people in here do cybersecurity testing? 0. Not a single. Oh, good.
It's not security testing.
You just started. Good. Well, I think you're on the right track then. Because what we're going to talk about, and I have a tutorial tomorrow that goes in more depth, but we're going to talk more about the importance that testers, as testers, we need to pay attention to this area because it's only going to become more of a problem, more issues, more potential challenges. Yes, yes, good. Okay, so to start with, the student said, but does this even make sense? Like, should we be doing this? And so her study was to look at how do you do cybersecurity, what are all the different cybersecurity challenges, and how would testing, all the different kinds of testing that we do, match together. So she created a matrix. And I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to show you the research she did to build it, how she made it happen, okay? What happened was in the United States we have a store. Their symbol is a big red circle with a dot in the middle called Target. Target is like Walmart. It is like, what's another store you know from the United States? What other stores do you know? Any stores?
Home base.
Who?
Oh, that's maybe UK.
It's a UK store? Okay, so it's very popular in the UK. This is a very, very popular. So have you heard of Walmart? Yes. What other US stores? Any?
Sears.
Sears? Yes. Whoever said Sears, thank you. Yeah? Target is like those stores. They're everywhere. Everywhere you drive, you see a Target. They have groceries, they have shirts, they have clothes, they have sporting goods, they have everything. The nice thing is they're not expensive. So we love Target because it has everything you need and it's not expensive, but it's also not cheaply made. So it doesn't fall apart. So it's fantastic. I mean, they got the best of everything, right? Okay. Well, Target had a little problem happen in the United States where millions of records of credit card information was stolen. So my credit card information was stolen among hundreds and millions of other people like you and me that shop there and use our credit card. How many people use credit cards? At least 2/3 of the room. Okay, all right. I wish I could go back to cash now because it's so scary out there, right? But they steal your credit card, and what happens? They go charge on your credit card. They steal your identity. They make your life miserable, okay? Not fun at all. So, Target came out, this had a really terrible breach, and the students said, oh my gosh, what was the problem with Target? How did it happen? It turns out it's a testing issue, okay, and she figured that out. So she did what's called a literature review. In academics, when we do research, we don't want to do something that's already been done before, because maybe somebody already figured it out. We don't want to replicate unless it's on purpose. So she went and looked at all the past studies and tried to find out, what are we talking, are there any studies on cybersecurity testing? Turns out there's not a whole lot, because people aren't talking about this yet. So this is one of the first times we've started talking about this in the academic literature. So we'll talk about that in a minute. The next thing is she created a matrix. She took all different kinds of testing, and she took all different kinds of security problems, and she mapped them together. And then lastly, you'll see, well, I guess before the conclusion, you'll see she took that matrix and she met with hundreds of people and said, where does it make sense? Where can testing find the security problem? And you'll see she created a matrix with check marks where experts have given her feedback and told her, yes, this will work. Now, it's not tested yet. The next step is to go take the matrix and actually put it in action. But at least she has a starting point. So that's what I'm sharing with you today. All right? So what happened was in December 2013, Target, their systems were breached. Millions of records, well, 40 million customers were affected. 40 million people had their credit cards stolen. Had to go get a new credit card, had to check see if their identity was stolen as part of that. Really bad. Bad for Target's brand name. Trust. Do you trust Target anymore? Yeah, right? It shakes your trust. So this is a bigger issue than just your data. It's a bigger issue because now the brand is being harmed. Maybe I should go to Walmart instead next time, because they're going to keep my credit card securer. Is that a word? And what happened was, if you go analyze what happened and the problem at Target, it was a vendor portal that allowed the bad guys to get in. It wasn't the vendor wasn't the bad guy, but they carried on their information device the bug that got into the system that then was able to work its way through and get into the credit card data. Okay. So, it wasn't really Target's fault, but it was Target's fault. They should have more secure systems. They should test their portals, right? They should test when a vendor is accessing things, what they are allowed to access, where viruses could possibly go, how to stop them. So we should be testing for that. And lastly, the point of sale systems picked these things up and then just propagated the virus and the bug, and then went out and sought out all the credit card data and then was able to find where it was stored and then steal it and send it back to the bad guys. Okay, so could testing have helped? Yes or no? Could testing have helped?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. All right, and studies that have actually been done of Target have proven that. Okay, so there was like I said, when it comes to cybersecurity, we have something called a cybersecurity kill chain. I'm going to show that to you in the very next slide. But a cybersecurity kill chain. Here's the deal. When it comes to cybersecurity, we cannot stop the bad guys from getting in. They will get in. They are going to get in. The question is, once they get in, can we stop them from going further and getting to the important information? That's what we have to test for. Not can we keep the perimeter secure. We're never going to be able to keep our boundary of our information technology secure. It's just impossible. There's too many people accessing too many things with too many devices. There's just too much. So they're going to get in. Now, once they're in, can you stop them? And that's what we test for. So it's called a kill chain. There's a chain of events, a bad guy, usually a malware, a virus. Once it gets in, there's a chain of activity that they go through. And I'm going to show that on the very next slide. You want to catch them at one of those points in the chain. You're not going to keep them out. You want to watch them and catch them at a certain point before they get too far. Okay, so the really key points are on the bottom here. Number one, Target gave network access to their third-party vendor. They had a portal for the vendor, and it turned out to be, I think, HVAC. It was an air conditioning company. Okay, something as not scary as your air conditioning vendor. You want your air conditioning to work in the store, yeah? It's kind of hot outside. So therefore, you want them to have access to be able to fix and maintain their systems, but you got to make sure that they don't introduce malware, bad guys. Okay. Target failed to respond. There were multiple times when the malware got into the system that triggered alerts. But the people said, oh, reset. They didn't actually take it seriously. Okay, so now what does that tell us about testing? It's not just a technical issue, right? We might need to test for human problems. We might need to expand how we do testing and training of people. Cybersecurity isn't just about the technology anymore. It's about how people respond. So maybe from a testing standpoint, we have to change the way we think. So think about that for a minute. Third bullet point there, attackers infiltrated Target's network with a vendor credential. They came in through the vendor portal. They moved around through what's called less sensitive areas first. That means if we were watching, we could have seen the bad guys moving around in our system. If we were paying attention, to the alerts, if we were paying attention and we had built-in testing, some kind of test mechanisms to test for, is this supposed to be happening? Is this malware supposed to be running around the less sensitive data? So we had time. We had time to catch the bad guys. They were in our system, and we could see it if we were paying attention, if we had the right mechanisms in place. And the last bullet there, Target failed to respond. So in the US government, what they do is they do something called red teams, blue teams. On purpose. They take teams out there and they pretend they're bad guys. They pretend they're the HVAC company with malware, and they put it on the system on purpose. And the blue team has to go find it and be testing all through the system, trying to catch stuff like the cybersecurity issues. So there is what's called red team, blue team testing done every single day. Our military obviously has got to be secure, and so there's a lot of cybersecurity testing that takes place, a lot in the government level, in the military level, because they've got to keep secure. Okay, so maybe Target should have done something like that. Maybe they should have had a test scenario where they pretended to be the malware. They pretended to be an HVAC person that had malware on their device that when they connected into the portal, it propagated. And they wanted to test their people to see how they responded. Maybe those are things we need to start incorporating into our test plans. Okay, and I set this down. All right. So here is what we call the kill chain, left to right. Right? The first word is reconnaissance. What malware does, what bad guys do, is they first get into the system. And then they just kind of look around. They don't really go jumping around. They don't want you to see them. They want to kind of hide. They're just watching. They're looking around the system. They're just paying attention. They're just trying to figure stuff out. This is a little scary, right? Y'all, this is happening right now in your computer systems. You can't stop this. You'd like to think you can, but these guys are smart. And they are trying to get in millions of times a day, in millions of types of different ways. And they're bored, or they're hungry, or they're sitting all alone in their shack in the top of a mountain somewhere in Russia. I don't know where they're from. And they're just like, they're bored, and they just want to get into your system. And so they're just going to keep on trying and keep on trying. So they're going to find a way in, and they're just going to sit there and look around. Scary, okay? So that happened at Target. Then they do what's called weaponize. They turn their malware on. And built into the bad guy malware, the bad guy code, is a series of actions. So they weaponize it, they turn it on. Okay, next then they actually deliver what they're trying to do. They start moving around. They start trying to go find sensitive data.